Alrighty, folks. Well, it's great to have you all here. Thanks for joining. My name is Brooke Lee. I'm the Tableau Customer Success Manager for Capital One, which means that I am here to really help with enablement and resourcing around Tableau's kind of legacy software. So we have moved into the Salesforce ecosystem over the past couple of years, as many as you know. And with that, we have come together around our One Analytics strategy. So this is a kickoff of a webinar series that we are partnering with Atrium on. And the goal of this series is to inform and educate and kind of uplift our analytics practice, whether it be with Tableau or Tableau CRM across Capital One. Just a little bit about me. This is my 7th year with Tableau, and I'm out of Dallas, Texas at the moment, though who knows where I might head in the post-COVID world once we're able to get back up to speed and start traveling again. Joined by our peers over on the Atrium side, Gene Zeiger, and the Atrium presenter. Our host today is Melissa, who is going to be receiving any chats if you have any questions throughout the course of today's presentation. From the Tableau team, it sounds like you all are familiar with John, who is our TCRM lead, and then Jared Friedman and Jesse Sturgis are here as well. I'll let them introduce themselves in a moment. And the focus of today's content is really about the Tableau platform and how to really move into performant Tableau dashboard solutions. So we have a smaller audience today, so we can definitely make this interactive. But let's start. Jared and Jesse, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves? And then Jesse, you can bring up your screen, I believe, at any time here.
Sure, I'll go first, just be brief. So, hey everyone, great to meet you. Jared Friedman. I'm part of Tableau and Salesforce Analytics strategic banking team based in the New York area. I joined Tableau almost 2 years ago now, but I've been in the digital analytics space for going on about 12 years. And work closely with a lot of different Capital One teams. So really looking forward to kind of amplifying and augmenting the current partnership that we have in place to kind of help drive data analytics and data visualization across the bank, which I know is an incredibly important priority for multiple groups. So great to meet you, Jesse. I'll hand it over to you.
Yep, my name is Jesse Sturgis. I am the Principal Solutions Engineer working alongside with Jared and with y'all as well, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So, Jesse, let's go ahead and get started today. Let's ground everybody in kind of what today's content is all about, which is really around designing performant dashboards. Again, we are going to be open for Q&A throughout the course of today's session, so we'll be leaving plenty of time for questions over the next hour or so.
All right, so I kind of want to make this a bit of a kind of a conversational and then open type presentation here, but I really want to talk about just some of the tips and tricks and what I've seen towards building some performant dashboards here. Not only performant dashboards, but some good looking dashboards as well. So I'm going to pull up a couple of examples here. These are some good and bad dashboard examples. Let me make sure this one has what I'm looking for here. Yeah, it definitely does in there. We'll take a look at my data source in here. If it doesn't, let's see here. No, it's all right. I can just pull that up in another workbook there and start working with it as well. I'm going to kind of come over to my good and bad one here, but I'm going to start over just really in a blank Tableau session here, because if we want to get to a performant dashboard, it's good to start performantly, right? It's good if I'm connecting the data or even have an idea in mind of what I'm trying to take a look for. I want to make sure that is I'm geared towards efficiency, geared towards performance, but also geared towards what my end users are wanting or expecting to be here. So I'm going to pull up an example here. I'm going to close it back out. I'm going to take a look at some of the connections there. I'm going to hop over to that other dashboard that we were taking a look at, show why it was wrong, some areas to look at right. And then we'll round out with a couple of things to look for in publishing and end user pieces there. But again, if you want to jump in, you have any questions, more than happy to. Just let's see here. Yeah, I just wanted to come in here and say pause this for an hour. Cool. Yep. And I had to log in there. I had 2 calls at once, so I had to jump off that other one there. So when you have Tableau desktop, You have a couple of sample workbooks below. I'm gonna take just a real quick look at them because they do have some good designs to them. So we want to take a look at those and maybe grab a couple of things. One of the things I really like about not only Tableau, but kind of BI in general is if you see something that looks good and is working fast, steal it, right? Take it. There's no copyright, there's no patents on good design there, especially if you go to our Tableau public or you see things embedded or someone just shows you a good graph, take it and make it your own here. So this example here, this is the one, the sample out of the box, comes with desktop, has a couple of good things going on that make this one pretty performant here. And we're going to touch to some of these ideas a little bit more. First off, it's not laden down. It's pretty simple, borderline sparse, but it really just tells you the information that you want it to tell you. And that's probably the number one key there, is trying not to tell way too much or trying to tell 5 stories when 1 or maybe 2 stories will do here. In this case, I'm just looking at this from an executive overview here, and there's things I want to look at, in this case, in a sales and profitability. So great, I have my top KPIs here for sales, profitability, profit ratios, and what have you. Not too many of them, not a dense table of here's every metric and every year-over-year change or growth or what have you. Just what am I doing? What am I doing now? In this dashboard, I've set it up, or it's been set up, I didn't set this one up, as the KPIs at top as part of the broader dashboards. With recent Tableau versions, we have what's called metrics available as well, which can make this even more performant by taking this right, kind of this KPI here and making its own, I like to say, Tableau object. So you're able to take it as a Tableau object that's saved on server, and you can open it up in your mobile device there. So you can actually not load the whole dashboard. You can load exactly what you want on a mobile and say, oh, my sales are, almost to 2.3 million. Well, when I get into the office, I'll open up the dashboard and start analyzing a bit more, kind of delving in or what have you there, right? So part of it is this is going to be performant. It's a very easy calculation. You can make it even more efficient performant by just opening up that we call our Tableau metric here. So this is this top end area here. It's kept very simple. Second thing is it doesn't have very many visualizations on it. It doesn't really need to here. In this case, I'm taking a look at, say, sales and profitability. This would be sales here. And I'm using a hover over, a viz in viz, to actually give me additional information, in this case, about Texas. Now, I may want to know how Abilene is doing or not doing, or how other cities are doing. But if I slam that all at once, if I put all, say, the cities or the zip codes or even something finer on there, that's going to be a lot to ask of Tableau. And that's going to be a slower visualization. So I'm starting high. I can delve down in. So now if I say, let's click on Texas. Now I can see how Texas is doing here. Or if I want to see the West Coast, I can see how the West Coast is doing there. But this right here, this map here, if I'm querying back to whatever data source I'm querying to, it's only going to return me 50 data points, one for each of the 50 states. For, in this case, I think this might be this is profitability or profit ratio here. That's a very fast response. That's a very easy query. 50 points coming back from a database that could be 10 or 100 million rows or a billion rows is going to be pretty quick in here. And that's why I'm able to do like selections here and go down to details where there is more data. It's going to be performant not only at that map step, but at every step there. So starting broadly here and drilling down and drilling down and drilling down. This is just a 2-point drill, so it's just a very simple case here. But I can come in and now take a look at how consumer profitability is doing and sales are doing at this date for this set of states, for these 4 Western states. Now that's very quick because I've selected in the map and then I've selected my date point there. You can kind of imagine in your mind, if I'm looking at a dense set of text or an even Excel sheet or something like that, where all those cities and all those states and all those dates are there. And it's just lugging along, being very slow because you have to find out what you want. So that performance there is just knowing, kind of what you're designing and what's going on with the design there. But at heart is just keeping them simple, showing one or two pieces of information, because it's what that information shows what that people are going to want there. So I'll click out of here, There we go there. And I head over to the right here, another piece here. Really the third piece of this dashboard that I'm taking a look at here is I'm keeping my filters minimal. There's 3 of them here. I've taken the states, again, I'm the royal eye, right? We have taken the states here and divided them into the 4 regions here. I had selected the West, but let's see what the author has set it up as West. And it's pretty much all the square states out, going out west there. And I'm getting that same sort of drill down in there. Also say by the date I've ordered the product and what my profit ratio is here. I'll just put this up into say 2019 to just to show a little bit of what's going on. Is that 10 filters though? Is that 20 filters? It's not say product name and product category and product subcategory and product manufacturer and salesperson and owner of the store, right? Just every little category you can think of in that data set. Let's just throw them all at the wall and let the end user sort them out. It is giving them some a simple way of analyzing and understanding their data there, and this makes it performant because each of these and their values in here have to be queried by Tableau. They have to be queried. I have to know what makes up my central, what makes up my east, what makes up my south, what makes up my west. So if I'm making these filters, especially ones that have the values in it, those have to pre-populate. That's a query. That's going to slow down your efficiency there. Oops, sorry. So making sure that your filters are really the ones you want. If they have to go into that real detail, if I say I want to have a ton of filters or something like that, a lot of clients that do want something like that, I say, okay, build a dashboard to that end and let your end users know that sort of detail is not going to be very performant. But if you need that info, you get it. I've had clients where it's laden with say filters, right? There's 20, they had 20 or 30 filters way at the top, and they were selecting 2, 3, 5 filters, and it would literally take 10 minutes to run, and they looked at me with tears of joy in their eye because the alternative would take 24 hours. So they were gaining 23 hours plus in time. It was still taking 10 minutes, right? So efficiency was relative there. But if I'm really aiming for that most efficient work, but it is, do you really need even those 20 or 25 there? Get to the heart of the matter. You can always create another dashboard if you need another cut, which is what's going on here. This was the overview, but if I want to look at, say, from a product perspective, or from a customer perspective, or from a shipping perspective, I can create those dashboards. This is going to be a bit more efficient. It's going to be a lot more efficient because if I'm rendering my overview, I'm not going to render product and customers and shipping as well. These are only going to render. And render, I mean query and coming back and presenting the visual and presenting it in a visual way when I click that dashboard there. So I can have 8 dashboards in the workbook, but only overview will come up and then product when I click on it here. But this has some context for me based on what I was seeing in overview. I still have my regions in the upper right-hand side, but now I can take a look at it by, say, sales and profit name. And just kind of jumping through these as well and seeing what else is going on. Now this is a good dashboard. I'm actually going to point out a couple of things I may or may not like. So I have my own ways to it. You'll have your own ways to it as well. There'll be things that your audience wants or executives wants that kind of color how you design it for that type of audience. In this case, I'm not really a fan of this type of design because it just takes up space. I like this design. I like the drop down in a single or multi-select, and then showing my results. This is small enough, so it's not really that much different, but I've seen ones, and we'll see ones where it's just a big, humongous list there. Not only do these values have to come back, you have to render them all as well, because they're visual. You see them in front of you, you have to render them. So not a huge fan there, but this is small enough that it's not too much either way. What I'm looking at here, and you kind of see what's going on here, is something of a way to, if your users like to see that density of data, but you don't want to be really filtering or changing that visualization a lot. This is using some highlighting here, and you can see I'm highlighting what's going on the right based on what I select on the left. And the same thing on the left-hand side. Let me unclick there. It's going to highlight on the right. If I come up to the top, it should be the upper right one. Yeah, Tamara Chan there with the sales and profitability. Side note here, I'm a big personal fan of scatter plots, because there's so many ways to slice and dice it, but you can kind of pick your subset of your slices and dices as you want. In this case, it's a gradient of color, but you might find that shape is important, or size of the circle is important. Or even if you're doing logarithmic versus actual scales. There's a lot of ways to the design to get to what you're looking for that can make it pretty efficient, rather than say 2 or 3 different visualizations getting you to that same end. One of the coolest ones I've seen is to size these by date. If you have to say monthly data, you can make the more recent months bigger and the further back in time smaller, and you can see like a journey of time as it gets towards the present, how the bigger the circles get. So, and a nice idea there, an alternative to just to the regular line or bar over time there. But these are some things I like about this dashboard. Getting to this idea of designing efficiently is just really designing for simplicity, spreading it out so everything is not packed into one, keeping my filters manageable, not necessarily minimal, but manageable here. If you're getting too many, you want to spread it out into there as well. Finally, we'll just kind of tie it to the next step here. Is I'm going to take a look at, keeping your data sources pretty small here as well. This one uses 3 data sources. Flat files of commission, sales target, and the old sample superstore there. Not having, say, 10, 12, 15. I think the most I've seen ever, someone had over 100 once. And it was, I couldn't even see the dashboard because I would open up my data. And this screen would take up this would take up like the entire screen because there were so many of them.
Hey, Jesse, if you don't mind, just want to ask a question. So
sure.
Andy and Anna, I know you're not Tableau users, you're mostly Tab CRM users. What are your thoughts based on what Jesse shared so far around this? And I think you're designing probably the most, right?
Yeah, I would say right now, although I don't have any experience at all in Tableau, and so it's hard for me to.
But how about, I guess what I was trying to go is like, how about some of this design theory as it relates to what you're doing with Tab CRM?
I mean, I would, from what I'm seeing, I mean, it appears to have functionality. I mean, I don't know, because I don't know like how we would, how to go about building this and like what all is involved on the back end.
Okay.
It's hard for me to say for sure, but just from what I'm seeing, I would say that there's a lot of functionality here that probably is better than what we would get in Tab CRM, but I don't know that for sure. So it's interesting though to see what's.
Yeah, and I guess where I was going was just maybe from the design principles that Jesse's talking about and how you might use that relative to what you're doing in TCRM was kind of where I was going with it.
We want some maps. We definitely want maps in Tableau CRM.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I'm showing here really could carry to any, type of business intelligence tool here. And my world is mostly to the Tableau. It's what I know is best, so I can point to some of the more detailed areas, but those would carry over to TCRM or anything else, right? Minimizing
Yeah,
of filters, setting a narrative, looking at your data sources, things like that.
yeah, maybe if I can also, so Chris and Jordan, what area of Capital One are you involved in? And are you Tableau users today?
Was that John? Was that to me on that?
I was asking Chris, yep, you, or Jordan, kind of what area of Cap One are you in, and are you currently a Tableau user?
Oh yeah, we actually have you all under retainer for the professional services group with
Okay.
Brian and Maureen and team. So yeah, we're pretty much taking Tableau to the cutting bleeding edge, but and some of the things just that you were showing, it is kind of the problem for us is that some of our users, or we have a heterogeneous user base which has data that is highly intertwined, meaning it's many objects in one of our other systems that we're looking to do analysis. So we're using Tableau in some cases as a dashboard, which is projects a data point with a stop there. But we're moving more towards an analytic engine where we're trying to pull that thread, one click goes into another screen, or we have a sheet swap so that you can start to take it through those objects, because that's effectively how the system that we're trying to do analysis upon is wired up. So you have to do all that, which does make a performant problem.
It can be. Tableau somewhat makes that easy, and I'll show an example here, and maybe I can give you some good ideas as to how to get the best combination of the performance and sounds like the granularity ultimately that they'll end up wanting. And we'll show a little bit around design work as well, because if you're taking a look at my screen right now, you may look like this is like the worst thing you've ever seen, right? If you've had this in front of you, you'd probably want to reconsider your career choices. But this is kind of by deliberate design, and this is actually a pretty old example, but it just stays tried and true for as long as it's been around. One of our kind of design gurus here at Tableau a long time ago was given a data set around hotels, and was said, okay, something like show me better, show me good. I can't remember, the story's kind of lost to history, but was ended up with the data set in a dashboard that looked like this. And he took it as a challenge to say, let's show what a bad example looks like. Let's show what a good example looks like. And the good example is not only going to be a good example, it's going to be a better, more efficient example. This is obviously the bad example here. So this is just looking at like Dominican Republic, Caribbean type hotels and occupancy rates for some years ago there. I think back in 2013 or something. And I don't know what this is trying to tell me. I don't think anybody knows what it's trying to tell you. It's also not very fast. There's a ton of just graphics going on here. There's filters you have to slide down, up and down in here. The hotels are masked here, so I'm not going to worry about those letter type things, but it's very hard to figure out what sort of value this is going to give to me. And if this was that size, this could be a very dense and very long hotel thing. So turned it into really two dashboards here, but it ties back to what I was talking about on the sample one here, which is it simplified the filters here, gave me some KPIs, and gave me this ability to drill down and drill across here. This one's a little bit more to it in that it does give a nod to the idea that some people just want the text in front of them. Right? Some people just need to see the numbers down to the actual number or down to the actual decimal. And that's okay, as long as it's not a full page of it, as long as you're going to get your numbers and you can compare them, in this case, to the 4 locations for this hotel example. Yeah, I can see it as fine. It's not going to take that long to render. What's nice about this one is if I want to say, okay, why is Dominican Republic revenue in May, I think this is lower than expected, it'll automatically navigate me over to another dashboard that does get into a lot more detail, that can present those tables. If this is published, these could be exportable tables if you needed to do some really dense stuff in, say, Excel or Google Sheets here. But it does present me this type of text that some people just know and love here. But in the context of this case, the region I'm looking at, I think it just goes to region, but I could also do the month if I wanted to do so. So based on some simple analytics I had done on the overview, it's going to get me down to what I want to do, not say to the row by row level, but enough of it so that it's going to have a balance of performance and detail that my end users want. And this is just a two hopper, right? I come from this dashboard here over to here, and I think there's like a little navigation back. This style in practice, I've seen 3, 4, 5 dashboards where you get progressively more detailed till you get a set of data that say, I need to take this off and do something in a stats package or a spreadsheet, but it's broad enough to that I was able to get to that set of data from the drill down and drill across here without those queries taking forever to run. Does that sort of align with what you're thinking of getting folks to that type of data from a more navigation between sections type of experience?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we definitely have been trying to do more of the number crunching to get closer to the hero metrics up the top there, or alerts and tasks, that kind of methodology. But we're still right now in our world presented with that challenge you mentioned before, with having 20 filters at the top. So that's because we have so many different behind the scenes, that heterogeneous data set has so many columns that are all important for different use cases. And you can't really separate. What we're trying not to do is have the experience in our user base of 40 or 50 different Tableau files, but rather how can I bring it all together and wire it in such a way where their experience is all based on one, and they start with one point and then they continue their journey for the analysis. And so that's what we've been trying to do.
And I think this this good bad example and the superstore example are two approaches to it.
Yep.
This one being a bit more of a kind of a narrative style. I start here, it drills to here, and I can have drill to here, blah, 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 blah. Or this one where it is, I need to jump to different cuts to the same broader data set, right? I don't need to see 25 filters in front of me. What I really wanted to see was some commission data, but it's would be quote unquote convenient if everything's in front of me and I just chose commission. Well, another way to think of convenience is I have a commission dashboard that goes to that sort of subject matter there. I'm able to navigate there to say, order details or other types of things here, but it's really what kind of, what am I trying to analyze of this broader type of set here? I have seen something of a model that keys off of this one, where instead of it being a workbook with a bunch of dashboards in here, it is more of, you have a portal that has links off to different dashboards in themselves that are somewhat self-contained, but they all relate to a broader subject matter, right? I'm in sales and I have a bunch of dashboards, but my shipping dashboard has nothing to do, doesn't use the data, doesn't even serve maybe the same folks as, say, my product dashboard would. But I can have an internal portal that I log into and it can take me to those sections that I want to. That could be a little bit more performant because this data set could be completely different than this data set, and you're not linking them together in such a way as, you're getting Cartesian products or custom SQL and doing some nastiness like that. But breaking it out, not breaking it too granular, and getting them just to the end level data they're looking for there.
Makes sense.
Cool. So we kind of looked at the the horse. Let's look at the cart here. Was that cart for the horse? Anyhow, going backwards in time. Looking at the data set pieces, and this may take to those who have more of a TCRM or other BI products there, it always comes down to how you're connecting to the data, how you're querying that data, your best practices there to make it efficient there. Great thing about Tableau, right, is you can connect to anything, right? There's so much that it can connect to here. We have, 80, 90 connectors. We have generic connectors. We have connectors built by third parties based on frameworks. These are always expanding. I mean, there's like 4 different SAP connectors alone in here. So it can be tempting to connect to every database, bring them in at once, but really keying off of what we've just been talking about, getting your subject matter in order, knowing where that data comes from. Knowing also that some of these data sources are just fundamentally more efficient than others. A Snowflake's going to be super fast, right? An MS SQL properly designed or some of the Google stuff is going to be super fast. Something, some dense Oracle stuff or some OData stuff is going to be somewhat slower. Denodo could be like really slow, and the Cloudera stuff could take, a whole weekend to run, depending on what table you connect into. So there's an assumption there that what you're connecting to has been somewhat pre-designed to have those types of queries that Tableau and other BI tools, but Tableau is really good at sending those queries on a regular to even constant type basis. So the database wants to be able to process those pretty quickly there. And you can see what Tableau sends to it. If you've ever gone into and looked at, say, the performance recorder or looked at the logs, you can see the types of queries that Tableau sends. So you can work with your DBA to make sure those queries are going to run quickly. Tableau can only be as fast as the data source, is what I'm saying there. You'd certainly want to hit to we call it to a server, but really is you want to hit to if you have the option, hit to a database. A database is going to be faster than Excel. It's going to be faster in a spatial file or a PDF for an access. The only thing that can even approach or match it is going to be our Tableau extract files. If you extract the data there, so making sure that the data source is quick is probably the number one thing to efficiency of the workbook there. But we'll do a connection here. I know there's some folks here who've seen Tableau more, seen or less, so you can get a little bit of a demo as long as while we're kind of hitting into here. Let's go to documents here. Oh, let me back up here for a sec. We're not going to get too much into it, probably not at all today, but we could do a session on. We do have a data preparation tool called Tableau Prep. So if the data is almost but not quite ready for analytics, or there's something you'd want to do to it to really make it efficient, we have a tool more designed for that particular purpose there. It's a good to have. So for some sources it's necessary there, but it's not absolutely required for using Tableau. But just know if you're almost there, we can help you with that last mile. But we'll go in, just pull a data source here. All right. And if you've worked with Tableau, this should look, of course, very familiar. If not, with Tableau, we pull together one or more tables from one or more data sources, put them together, and then we go off to the one or more sheets, build our visualizations. Those visualizations, they get connected together in the dashboards. So when I was showing the dashboards on the call today, it was from one or more sheets from one or more data sources. So we're kind of going back to the beginning here with that key towards efficiency here. When it comes to efficiency, we've actually done something pretty nice in our 2020.2 is when it came out, in that we're able to, if you're working with, say, one or more data sets, I'll actually do this returns. Tableau is now smart enough to understand the granularity of your data without you having to, say, force it into your visas or force it into your joins here. It's called relationships. If you've worked with relationships, you've worked with more recent Tableau versions, you might have seen if I'm looking at returns, say, by state, it's going to pull in and aggregate it correctly. Whereas in previous versions, you'd have to do some calculation tricks to make it work. With Tableau, it just kind of works like that. So there's really nothing you have to do to get that granularity up and down. but just knowing it's like a superpowered join that can help with your data sets and in your design of your dashboards to make them work efficiency calc-wise, that's the speed of it, but also efficiently in designing of your workbooks there. And if we want to delve a little bit more relationships, just let me know. I can kind of show you what those differences are. But if I'm designing to it, obviously want to have as few data sources, and columns in those data sources that we need to build towards it. We don't want to laden it down with data that we don't need. So we kind of keep it as to what we do need here. Here I'm just doing, say, an orders and returns off of a single data source that is a Excel workbook here. Tableau does allow you to do additional workbooks, add in additional connections, do what's called cross data source joins. Take care with those because those get essentially joined or related in memory and Tableau, and that can drag a little bit there, if not a lot there. So ideally you want to have one, maybe two connections and not just joining across 5 or 6 or 8 data sources because you could stick a lot into memory there. Let's see here. Let's head over to the right here. Connecting live. If it's faster for me to send the query to the source, in this case, I'm literally sending the query to Excel, but in a database world, I'd be sending SQL off to MS SQL. If that's faster, go live. If it's faster to take a snapshot of the data, put it into memory and let Tableau just do the whole thing itself, do an extract. It's not black or white either or. I think the larger companies, the more efficient ones, just find the fastest way to do it, whether it's live or whether it's extract. There's no right answer there. And you can find, actually a lot of cases, the performance between the two is comparable. And the choice to use one or the other is not based on sheer speed, but it's something to always check is if my performance is slow live, let me extract it and see if that speeds it up. Especially if you're using a huge CSV, the difference is just noticeable, like orders of magnitude faster. CSV is a very famous difference there. Filters, data source filters as well. So when I query a database, I can send a query to the whole database, and that could be, say, 1 billion or 1 trillion rows. Well, Tableau gives you this ability through the data source filters to reduce the set of data it's going to query on. Oh, there's some real thunder outside. That can actually be pretty noticeable as well. A good example here is if you have a database that's going back, say, 20 years, but you're never going to query data that's more than 3 years old. Well, do a data source filter of just bring me the last 3 years of data. You're instantly going to gain, 75% faster because it's only looking at a quarter of the database there. I always, whatever I'm doing my own analysis, I always look for opportunities to do data source filters. Things I can always know I'm going to filter out 100% of the time because this will filter them in or out 100% of the time. Let's see here. So we did joins, we did this. Okay, we're just looking at the data side here. The last piece here, and one of the most important, is avoid custom SQL unless it's absolutely necessary. And I'm connected into Excel at the moment. See if I can see if my SQL actually does come up. I think so. Let's see here. Hopefully I have the right password. Yes, I do. Okay, by the way, this is an example of connecting to 2 different sources here. I don't need this at the moment, so I'm just going to remove it. And we'll look at MS SQL here. We'll just pull a sample set here because this will give me custom SQL. I'll kind of show you how it would and how it would not use that. Let me see if I can find out. Accuracy rate should be fine. Okay, and then here we go. So under the hood, especially when I connected to a database, Tableau creates what's called a model query. It looks a lot like a select star. In fact, it looks like this. That query never actually runs. what it actually runs when you're building Tableau is it does a lot of where clauses, group by, and aggregations inside. That's what actually gets sent, but it modifies this model query. Sometimes though, this model query doesn't actually get you the base data that you need to work on. And so you convert it to custom SQL here. In that sort of case, my strong recommendation is to work with your data side to create views or run tables overnight or find some other way to do what you would do with custom SQL. Reason being is Tableau can do a lot of optimizations under the hood on customs on the just the dragged and drop table. But if you use custom SQL, if I start, typing in, guess might not be right, but if I just kind of add my own stuff in there, Tableau can't modify that, and it's always going to send the full query to the database, and that can be really, 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 really slow. Now that said, there's one case where custom SQL is pretty much the only way to work with it, and that is if you need to parameterize your query. A lot of times you see this with stored procedures. So I need to send some variable in with the query to the database because it's expecting that when I first connect to it. And I can't do that with drag and drop. I have to do that with custom SQL. But when we're talking about getting efficiency, we started, okay, let's start at the very beginning there, get to that end. This is a lot of the beginning here. A lot of what you do here can make your further design just faster or slower. Last piece here, and this ties more to extracts, but certain databases can affect as well. An extract is what's called a columnar store. The fewer the columns and the more rows that it has, the faster it's going to be. The more columns it has, the slower it's going to be. Performance is key on how many columns it has. There are other databases in the world that use this as their model, and they would work the same, and your DBAs will tell you what they are. MS SQL is not one of them. It's just a relational. But especially in the extract world, slicing off columns is a good efficiency piece there. I'll stop there. We could probably round out doing a couple of stuff on the sheet there, and then highlighting our designing efficient workbooks for further reference. But is there any questions here? Okay. So I'm just going to remove that. We'll just work with this here. Okay, that's okay. We'll hit to kind of one or two sheets here. So again, if this is your first time seeing Tableau, you're going to get something of a demo and something of efficiencies here is going on as well. Working with Tableau on the sheets is pretty easy. It's just a drag and drop point and click interface here. So if I want to say, look at subcategories here and look at my sales here and sort them out, it's pretty easy like that. That's mostly what Tableau is about. It's just point and click and drag and drop interface in there. In this case here, this is going to be really, really fast because I'm just doing an aggregation over a set of a dimension that doesn't have that many values in it. So that's going to be super, super fast there. If it was something more of, I don't know how slow or fast it's going to be, but I know it's going to be slower. If I were to say like take product name and do something like, let's see here. We'll do count distinctive postal codes. There should be. It's going to be a little bit slower. There's only 10,000 rows in here, but this is going to be a lot slower because this is granular, and count distinct is a very slow aggregation. So this is kind of two lessons here, even though the data set's pretty fast. Granularity, slow things down. The more detailed you get, the more it has to get those values and the more time it takes to render those values. So that's why when we're showing those previous dashboards, they were simple. They were showing 50 states and not say, 500 cities or more like that. Granularity has a real cost. The other piece here is, and we have a kind of a PDF that can get into a couple more of these, but there are certain aggregations that are inherently slow. Count distinct is one of them. Finding a distinct number of postal codes, I have to essentially look at the entire table and look at each postal code and count how many of those postal codes there are. And that takes a lot of time. For a computer to do, for a human to do, it just takes a lot of time. So sometimes you just need that. You need to use count distinct. I mean, your analysis is your analysis. But if you're able to avoid it, or if there's alternatives, I'd aim for them. Another one is, and I'll show it in the calculation here, just kind of how it is, but I was actually on a call with another bank, and their stuff was taking about 12 to 15 seconds. Every time you change the filter, it take 12 to 15 seconds. We had a session on last Friday, say, well, what's going on here? Well, their analysis was filled with a ton of if-then statements. They had a bunch of categorizations that they were doing. They were saying, if England or Wales or Scotland, then United Kingdom, right? They were doing a bunch of categorizations and groupings, and there were so many of them that all this calculation under the hood was just causing things to slow down so much. So string and if then and case statements can be slow as well. I try to get those hard coded in the data set. I try not to calculate them unless I absolutely need to. So string other ones, like looking at substrings, would be a third type there. But just calculations that are inherently slow are inherently, it will make your workbook inherently inefficient. So if there are ways to avoid them there. And I'll go ahead and stop there. Any questions there, or any kind of threads from past 50 minutes might want to kind of delve into further, either on this or on another session? Yeah, I mean, hopefully you're liking what you see in some of the similarities and differences of design of the Tableau side versus the TCRM side, and how you're able to just hit any sort of data source and make any sort of visualization Tableau side. And some of those, I think the strengths of the TCRM side as well, but hopefully this gives you a little taste of it.
Also enter into the chat my email address, because we're happy to dive deeper into anything that Jesse talked about today, or if you are a Tableau user, we can and you have performance concerns on your dashboards, we'd love a chance to help you out with addressing those concerns, because it can be unique to every single use case. And then again, this is going to be a monthly series. So next month we'll be getting together to deep dive into TCRM, and we are looking to build a bit of a roundtable discussion around how TCRM is being used across Capital One, and then how you can kind of enhance your practice. So if you are available, we'd love to see you in August, and with the follow-up, we will send over the registration links that you can share with your peers.